Welcome to Sir Lancelot's Real Estate Roundtable, your guide to mastering the realm of real estate in Central East Florida. I am Sir Lancelot Lenard, ready to uncover the secrets of seller strategies, home staging, mortgage mastery, and more. From Daytona Beach to Cocoa Beach, Lake County to St. Augustine, join me as we navigate the intricacies of real estate. As the leader of the Sir Lancelot Group at Florida Homes Realty and Mortgage, I'm here to arm you with knowledge and innovation, whether you're a seasoned homeowner or a first-time buyer, unveiling the kingdom of real estate, one roundtable at a time. What if the biggest real estate opportunity in Florida isn't a new condo tower or a master planned community, but something you can build in your own backyard? Today, we're unlocking the power of ADUs, accessory dwelling units, and showing you how one of California's top ADU pioneers is turning small spaces into big profits. Our guest, Seth Phillips, aka Mr. ADU, has transformed the way Los Angeles builds, lives, and invests. And now he's here to reveal why Florida could be next and how you can get in ahead of the curve. If you ever wanted to multiply your property's potential without multiplying your headaches, this episode is for you. Seth's story starts in 1982 when a Minnesota transplant landed in California with ambition, grit, and a sharp eye for opportunity. Over 3 decades, he built one of the largest Remax franchises in Los Angeles, led hundreds of agents, and has pioneered internet driven sales before the rest of the industry caught on. In 2007, he pivoted, managing over 100 renovations and multi-million dollar estate projects. And today, as the founder of ADU Gold, Seth has become the go to expert in transitioning unused space into income producing, value boosting living units. From reshaping neighborhoods in California to exploring new horizons here in Florida, Seth has been at the forefront of housing innovation. Seth, welcome to the Real Estate Roundtable.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to our discussion today.
Hey, let's start with your title, Mr. ADU. How did you first discover the massive potential in accessory dwelling units?
Yeah, been an interesting journey for sure. And you outlined it really brilliantly in my introduction. And really, I love being in the real estate sales business and had been doing it for a long time, and everything was going along great until all of a sudden in 2007 something happened. The market just collapsed and it was so bizarre. It just seemed like overnight I went from having this great job that I loved, that paid me great, to being unemployed literally. So I was looking around to see what else I could do until hopefully the market healed and I could get back to real estate sales. And I decided to go into the house flipping business because at that point there was so many foreclosure properties to work with. Of course, that was that just seemed like a logical possibility. And these numbers are so crazy sounding, and it really wasn't that long ago. But in 2007, we were buying single family homes in LA at the courthouse steps for 120,000.
Oh, are you kidding me?
When those properties were foreclosed on them, they typically had loans on them between 5 and 600,000, and they were selling at 120,000 on the courthouse steps. And so we bought them and we fixed them up, and then we could sell them for 190,000. Anybody that's been in the flipping world knows that by the time you get done paying for your fix-up costs, your buying costs, your selling costs, your holding costs, that doesn't leave much meat on that bone. So we had to additionally then learn how to manage multiple projects at the same time so we could scale it, because we were making a little money on each deal, and we did. And so then we got to where we were typically flipping about 12 homes at the same time, so managing 12 projects. And that worked. And then as the market just slowly began to heal, we just started to move up into more and more expensive neighborhoods. until we got to the very top of that food chain where we were just doing now ground up new construction in the ultra luxury market in Los Angeles, which is Beverly Hills, Bel Air, Hollywood Hills. And that was yet a whole nother learning curve because those projects are so complex that from the time you start to the time you could possibly bring it to market is like 2 years. And there's one thing we universally know about real estate is that it moves in cycles. And sometimes it's moving up, but sometimes it's moving down. And we were at that point, what you call a spec builder. So we were paying millions of dollars for the dirt, millions of dollars for the construction, and then hoping 2 years into the future, we would be rewarded for all of that. We'd already been in an upward appreciating market for some time at that point. So I was just getting more nervous about that. So my business partner and I decided to keep doing what we were doing, but to scale it back a little bit to something that would be less money intensive. We could do it faster. That would just give us a little bit more safety margin. So we found a probate property in Culver City, which is a suburb of Los Angeles. Nice area, but not the high end, but it's up there. And we bought it for $735,000 with the intention of doing what we had been doing, which was just to tear down that house and then just put a beautiful modern 2-story big box on it. So we bought it. We hired the architect and we're started on that process. And then I just had one of those life-changing aha moments, and I'll always remember it. As I was driving in the car with my business partner, and we were going out to look at some more property, and all of a sudden he started talking to me about this new ADU law that had just gone into effect. This is in 2018 in California. And there was just something about that information that really just grabbed my attention. And we've all had these kind of a very important milestone moments in your life where you remember that moment forever. But when you have a really intense one of those aha moments, you not only remember that information, but you just remember everything about that moment. And this was one of those for me. I was sitting in the passenger seat. I can see the dashboard. I can see the scenery out the window. I can hear the sound of my partner's voice talking about this ADU law. And it was so profound that I immediately just deep dived into it. And the more I researched it and the more I studied it, the more I just came to believe that this was going to be an important part of real estate moving forward. I was able to convince my business partner to completely switch gears, which was no small feat because we'd already paid $40,000 for architectural plans and they'd just been finished. But instead, we just threw that out the window. Instead of demoing the house, we just beautifully remodeled it. And then in the backyard, we built the first 2-story with rooftop deck luxury ADU in the city of Los Angeles. And it worked because, as I said, we bought that property for $735,000 and we sold that property for $1,805,000. So it did in fact work. And that was the beginning of my journey. And by the time we got done with that, I was like, I'm out of the spec building business. I'm just going to go full time into the ADU construction services business. And here we are.
It's awesome. Great explanation there. From California's 10-unit zoning laws have been a real disruptor. From your perspective, what's been the biggest impact on property values and neighborhood dynamics?
Yeah, that's really the question is what happens next? What effect is this having? And it's really interesting because when that first law came out, it was very simple. You could add one ADU to a single family property. Since then, every year they've added more and more new and bigger and better opportunities to the mix, including in multifamily properties. And so the opportunities have just increased. But starting from the very beginning, it basically came to my attention that what happened is by changing these laws, the government de facto changed the value of the dirt, because the number one determiner of value of any dirt is what you can put on the dirt. And initially, they doubled it, which theoretically would have doubled the value of the land. But it hasn't worked that way, and it continues to not work that way. The land is still trading at exactly the same price because it's already got something on it. It's already typically got a single family home on it. If it's a more rundown single family home, when somebody goes to sell it, there's a market for that. There's already other things that have been that have sold. So it's easy to figure out what is the value of that. So this is really the interesting part of this, is that there's an opportunity here now, because you can do so much more with the land than you could before. And yet we're still able to buy the land at pretty much the same price. Now, eventually, of course, that's not going to be true, because that value, this new added value of the opportunity, will slowly work its way into the valuation of any home, whether it's going to be developed or not. But it could be developed, so that will eventually add more value to it. So right now we're living in this perfect world where we can buy basically discounted land to do these projects with.
That's awesome for my investors out there listening. Build ADUs. So let's open up the can here. What are ADUs? A little bit broader description for the listener so they know what we're talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, it's fun because this has been my topic for forever, and fortunately this has been pretty well established in California now, but there's still many people that have no idea what an ADU is, and that's an acronym for accessory living dwelling. So basically, it's just, you can, if you have a property with one house on it, now you can have two houses on it. And
But
this
it's not a
ADU,
duplex. But it's not a duplex.
it typically, it is a de facto one, but the zoning on your property didn't change. It's still single family, probably.
Yeah.
So it's a new use of single family, and there's two living units on it. It is a de facto, but it's not technically, per typical legal jargon, not a duplex. It's a single family home with a second unit on the property. So it's the terminology for it is different depending on the area you're in, and just how popularized the different definitions of it have become. But the reality is, it's just another legal rentable living unit. Now, depending on the community you're in, there could be some restrictions to that. One of the popular restrictions is that, yes, it can be rented, but it can't be rented for short term. That's a common restriction. And also, a common restriction is that the owner of the property has to live in one of the units, but not everywhere. And California has gotten rid of most of those, except for the short term rental thing, because that's another beast. And I'm sure you've already had lots of discussions on this. That's the whole short term rental market. Potentially, it is amazing income producer in the right location where there's a demand for that kind of a product. I'm personally not a fan of it, because you're living at the whim of the government. Because right now they're saying you can do that, but tomorrow they could just say, nada, done. No more short-term rentals, period. And if you've already built a portfolio of that out based on that model, and all of a sudden that model is gone, that could be disastrous. So that's just something to be very concerned about. But that's the other good thing about this ADU thing, is that once they've legally allowed you to build a second unit on it, they can't take that back. That will be there
Always there.
forever. So it's a big point. Yeah.
So, guys, basically, he's talking about a mother-in-law suite of sorts in your backyard.
Yeah. granny
Small town.
flat.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Think about it this way. Okay, let's say you have a disabled grandmother that gets Section 8, and instead of moving her into a Section 8 housing, now you can collect the rent and put a house in the backyard of your own house, and you can watch grandma yourself. I think it's a really
yeah,
interesting opportunity for a lot of people. Also, house hacking is now becoming easier because now you don't have to live under one roof with someone, but you can
yeah.
either live in the ADU yourself with your wife and rent out the big house, or the other way around. So it opens up a totally new game in house hacking and other options as well. Now, Seth, if you were a Florida investor today, what early steps would you take to prepare for similar legislation here in Florida?
I'll answer that, but I want to add on to what you said because
Okay.
it's so spot on. And that is this idea of having another unit on your property. The obvious thing is that it can just be rented for more income, period. But some of the social dynamics that go along with that are really potentially even more important for our overall society is that having a place for elderly parents to live and not have to be under the same roof, still living independently, but living right next to you, that's big. And then there's another phenomenon which is much more recent, and that's the
Younglings.
boomerang kids. Yeah, they left, but they came back, and they need a
Exactly.
place to live. And they probably, for sure, there you don't want to be under one roof. So this has really created a lot of opportunity for that beyond just the monetary thing. This is important. And when big cities were originally built, particularly in New York, you grew up in a brownstone. When you bought your first house, it was another brownstone within a block of your where you grew up in. The family was always still connected in some way. Now families are all over the country and completely separated, and that's not all good. And there are some advantages to families having an opportunity to be more together. So I think it's an important social opportunity too. And then the financial opportunity also, there's another little niche to that is that the parent who's getting older now grew up in this big house they don't need that big house anymore. So their past thing has been they can sell it and downsize. Well, they could still do that, but now there's a new opportunity. They could build the perfect brand new ADU for them, totally to their spec, the way they want to live in their own backyard, move into that, and then rent out their main house, or the kids could come in and rent and be in that house. So many different little new opportunities baked into that I'm really excited about being part of that too, because besides there being a money opportunity here, there's also an opportunity, I think, to create better communities out of it as
Also,
well.
I'm a big believer in it takes a village to raise a family. And
Yes.
I came to this country with my wife, and we don't really have a lot of family around us. But when we do have, my mom comes visits us for 6 months out of the year. She lives with us. If I would have an ADU, it would be even better because now I can put mom into the ADU while she's visiting
Yep.
and helping us out. And it's just so amazing how much the kids can learn, smaller kids from our past generations and being all together as a family because everybody rubs off a little bit on the other one. And it's not in a
Yes.
bad way, it's in a good way a lot of times.
Yes.
You know, parents can teach wisdom and patience to the kids that grandparents, I meant, that parents might not be able to at the moment because they're out there hustling. And
Yeah, that's
watching
right.
your kids, this is another thing. Hey, date night. Oh, hey, when did you hear that last? The thing that it's amazing to have and to keep the flames alive in a relationship is having a date night or maybe going on a short vacation for 3 days. Guess what? Grandparents are there in the backyard. They can easily watch the kids or they can go on a vacation. There's so many ways that you can utilize this. And the philosophy behind this is amazing, I think. I think every house should come with an ADU now. To be
I,
honest with you, Seth.
I'm a supporter of that idea for sure.
Yeah, it's not just the income potential, but it's the potential of living together in one area. I don't know, going back a little bit in time, I know it's not totally this topic, but it used to be homesteads where not one house with a farm, but it was multiple houses and the families living together in the same community, helping each other
Yes.
out with, okay, one family watches the other kids and teaches, and there was one school at the end of the road that was taught by the parents, et cetera, et cetera. And we, with the modernization of the world and big cities, we eliminated those and moved the
Yep.
families apart from each other, where unity of a family is strength. And I think that's a lot of power given to us. And with this ADU law over there, you could gain some of that power back and try to work together as a family unit again. I think it's amazing.
I agree. And from a financial perspective, too, for instance,
Oh yeah.
assisted living in Los Angeles now is like $5,000 a month.
Yeah.
Instead of that, or before that, you've got a long window where you could have them in your space at one quarter of the cost of that. And it would be better for everybody as well. And also, with all that stuff, having older people engaged with younger people for sure is going to make their lives better and healthier and longer.
Oh, for sure. And the other spectrum of this is your children moving into that unit in their early 20s, maybe gaining some flexibility of saving up money for their own properties during that time. Because
Yep.
as we know it, today's salary doesn't really cut a house out anymore the way it did 20, 30, 40 years ago. So it takes longer to save the money. Now, if you can provide that to your kids, that, hey, you can stay with us for another 5 years if you want, until you save up while you get into a better position at your job or after college or whatever, to make that money to be able to afford a good house for yourself in a good community in a good neighborhood. You don't have to go to a trailer park or whatever out
Yeah.
for, because that's pretty much what people can afford with their salaries, entry level salaries nowadays.
Yep.
So it's just
Yep.
hard.
I
So here
totally
you
agree.
live with
I
us,
agree.
and it's just such a big help, man. It's such a big help. And
Yep.
let's say this, okay, because I'm one of those parents. Okay, pay me $1,000 a month. What would a good parent do? Put it into a fund that gets a 10% interest, and at the end of the 5 years, by the way, son, I didn't really spend any of the money you gave me. Here is the money I invested for you as a gift. You could start your life even better.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. Nothing wrong with that concept.
That's
Yeah.
I think I am, and I will be. I have a 6 year old and a 2 year old, so it's not there yet. But when it gets to that point, that's what I would like to do. So they get like the weight of paying like a rent or a mortgage, but it's
Mhm.
not the size of a mortgage and it's not the size of a rent, and that money gets invested and then gets given back to them. I think
That's right.
that's something that they'll really cherish, and then hopefully they'll do that to their kids, and so on and so
Yep.
forth.
And along the way, while you're being that wonderful with them, your asset is still going up in value.
Oh
So
yeah,
you're still making money.
yeah,
So
yeah.
everybody wins in that scenario. And it's hard to find in real estate where it is win. One of the things that for me is a little bit of a moral challenge is that, like everybody, have the bird dogs out there that are looking for the distressed properties and sending me stuff every day. But I have a just a kind of constant problem with that because I know when an opportunity like that comes along, it's an opportunity because somebody is selling the property for less than what that property is worth. And somebody talked them into doing that. And that just never sits quite right with me. Still, if a great opportunity comes along and I get the opportunity to purchase it, I'm going to. But I could never be that guy out there hustling for that because I'm going to be trained to feed on their fears and their insecurities, and as a result of that, get them to agree to this price that they really shouldn't have to agree to. But that's just me, and you don't need that. And that's the thing that I love about this new opportunity is that it's just sitting out there waiting for people to take advantage of if they've got that bigger vision for what a property can be. And that's what I try to teach people and show people is that this is an opportunity that is available to you, and it doesn't come at anybody's expense. And it will really be just a benefit to everybody that gets to touch any part of that particular transaction.
So let's get back to the question I asked a little bit back. Florida investors today, if you were a Florida investor today, what early steps would you take to prepare for similar legislation here in Florida?
Yeah, the first thing would be wherever you're interested in doing your investing at is to thoroughly investigate the existing ADU laws that are in place. And I did for this interview, I looked up Florida and I already knew, but I just did a little refresher on it. And there's a lot of ADU opportunity in Florida. And like most places in the country, they once they dip their toe in it, they immediately start to see the positive results and they just keep upping the ante. I suspect that will continue in Florida too. So that's the first and most important step. What could you build? And where can you build it? And because it is still largely a localized control over it, you can look around because it could be where the area you thought you want to invest in doesn't have much opportunity from ADU perspective, but maybe the next area over does. So doing your homework and understanding what the opportunity is in the different areas that you could consider doing your development in would be a really most important first step. And I do the first consultation with an agent. I've been with a prospective client that's interested in building ADUs, and I've been doing this so long now that with my secret weapon I use, Google Maps, I can, which is so amazing. You can go on, and I can be on the phone or on a Zoom call with somebody, and we can both be on Google Maps, and we can literally walk the backyard of any property on the face of the planet.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. It's so wonderful, though, as a tool goes. And now with the 3D thing, you can look at it from the side and you can see everything. I can see, most importantly, I'm looking to see how much space do we have to work with to build it.
Yeah.
That would be the
You
first
need
thing.
a certain lot
Already
size for
know.
this. Yeah.
You need space to put something. So where's the space? How big is the space? Are there things that are in the way? Where are the power lines? Where's that kind of stuff? And all that stuff you can mostly just figure out very quickly and get a scope of how big is the opportunity for this particular property.
Any specific markets in Florida that you think are primed for ADU boom?
I think I'm just going off my very vague memory, but I think some of the stuff in the panhandle, I think, is got some stuff going on. In the major metro areas, I know there's some. Tampa definitely has some. So I don't have that kind of information really dialed down to too much to the city level, but I did check and there was plenty of it. And in the more populous areas, definitely.
That's where you would
So,
like it
and
too.
even ones that,
That's where you
yeah,
would like it.
exactly. Yeah,
Orlando,
you,
Miami, Jacksonville, etc., where there's a lot more
yeah,
population, correct?
exactly. Yeah. The more people that are already there, the more energy there already is in the city, the more robust the rental market is, and wherever you are, that the market is appreciating in value, hopefully. Those are all things that differ a lot from location to location, but it's information that's easy to figure out as well, too. So you just got to spend the time on it. And if you don't know how to access that information, then speak to somebody that does,
Yeah.
that can help you, like a realtor like yourself. I'm sure you already got this stuff totally dialed in for your area.
But I've worked with ADUs before, and I had a lot of clients in 2022 when most people started moving to Florida from New York, all the places that were locked down. We were open, and a lot of people
Right.
were like, "Hey, we're looking for a place with an extra in-law suite," and that was a big thing in 2022. It was so hard to find some because there were not a lot of inventory was really low, so barely anything on the market because they were like, "We're thinking about coming down and grandma with us and all that stuff. Just grab the whole family and move down here." And that was a big thing. And I think it's still a big thing for a lot of people because they like that extra space. Now, on the side note, from your experience, do you split the address up in an AB version for this, or it has to be the same address? You get one mailbox, or how do you do that? It's separately metered, water and electric. So how does this work? Can you maybe tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. And that's also going to vary some from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. But in California, it is, I don't know of a city that has anything different. It has to have its own separate address. When it comes to the utilities, that part, there's a lot of variation in that. The easiest way to do it would, of course, would be to just tap into all of your existing utilities of your existing house. That would be the easiest.
The reason why I was
But
asking separate utilities is it's easier to rent out to someone outside the family
yes,
if it's a separated,
yeah,
because then you like,
yeah,
hey, it's not included. This is your bill, you
yeah.
know?
Yeah, and as a landlord in the long term, you would virtually always want the utilities to be completely separate because you don't want the hassle of having to divvy up bills. That's just
Yeah.
always been problematic. And most cities are actually prefer it to be separate as well. It's cleaner for them. And then you just, that's just part of the cost that you have to figure into your property. Because for instance, a sewer line can be a super inexpensive thing because it's just like an 18-inch wide trench that's maybe 3 4 feet deep with a piece of 6-inch plastic pipe in the bottom of it. Easy peasy. However, if you got a saw cut through 100 feet of concrete to
Yeah.
create that trench, the cost of that suddenly went way up because not only is the cost of cutting that, but then you got to repair that cement too and try to match that up with the cement that was there. So can be much more complicated. So that's the only one that is really much of a swing thing. And then they're going to have different regulations for like how close your ADU can be to existing overhead utility lines. They probably don't want you to be directly under them. So whatever your setback thing is, you might have to be a little bit further away from those wires depending on where they are. And that is all a definitely a location to location issue.
Yeah. And they're also, I think the governing entities limit the size of these units. So it can't be bigger than your main house, et cetera, et cetera. Correct. And in your area, in my area, I think that's the case.
Not everywhere.
Can it be
No, there's some
bigger?
amazing. Oh, there's plenty of opportunities in California now where there's literally no size restriction at all, other than
Wow.
just physically what you can fit on the property. So it's pretty amazing. But typically, yes, there is a limit. And just as a ballpark, 6 to 800 square feet seems to be a popular one. And then the next level would be the 1,000 to 1,200 square feet. That's also a very popular one. And that's really the 1,200 square feet. That just seems to be the most standardized number that I've seen across the country in the regs that I've looked at, which is good because 1,200 square feet, you could have a 4 bedroom house in
Yeah,
1,200 square feet
exactly.
if
You
you
could have
want
a
to.
two-story four
Yeah.
bedroom or a one-story
Yeah.
four bedroom. That's pretty wide, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you pretty much got unlimited opportunity in the scope of what you build, depending on the local regulations. So then it just gets to the purpose of it, how much yard you want to give up to it. But there is a solution to the yard giving up thing, and that is put a rooftop deck on it. Then you get the yard that you lost back, and now it has a view. So that's pretty cool. So
That is
I'm
pretty
a
cool.
huge proponent. I'm
Yeah.
a huge proponent of rooftop decks because of that, and specifically as it relates to this product, because if you're building in backyards, there's only so much space that you've got. And if that space was being used as a yard for other things, that's gone. But it doesn't have to be gone. You can get it back and then have a view. And people love rooftop decks too. So I don't know how exactly that would play out as much in Florida in general as it does in California, but it's definitely a real, probably if you're looking at one thing you could add to a single family home to add value to it that has the highest ROI, it would be a rooftop deck. Because the cost to it, you have to have a roof anyway. So it's just a more durable roof because people are going to be walking on it, stairs to get up to it, and then just a little pony wall around the outside so people can't walk off the edge. That's it. And that's all that extra now living space. It's technically not part of your assessor living space, which is actually a benefit because it's not taxable. But that is actually very valuable living space for the people that will be there. Because when I built that first 2-story with rooftop deck, as I would tour people through it, we just logically ended up on the rooftop deck. And they would be oohing and on all the way through. But when they got up there, as a realtor, you know this thing. When you're showing a customer a house and they sit down on the couch and they start talking about how they're going to decorate it, they're already buying the property. And that's what would happen when I would get up on that rooftop deck that was beautifully, of course, furnished and done out. They would just be, I would hear them go, oh, we'd be having dinner parties up here and blah, 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 blah. They were loving that space. And I probably, if I would went back and polled everybody, what do you think is the most valuable part of this thing? I bet the majority of them would have said the rooftop deck. Now, that space was the least expensive space of the build, and yet it probably delivers the highest value in terms of what the customer is willing to pay. So it's definitely always my recommendation. Build them whenever it's appropriate. Yeah.
Wish we had more hills.
Yeah, having something to look at from the view definitely adds even more value. But just the fact that it's replacing lost yard with an alternative, just that by itself is valuable very much.
I think one of my partners, we've been talking about building this house on the ocean, and a rooftop deck on the ocean. Oh my God. It has a rooftop deck.
Yeah.
It has an elevator going up to the rooftop deck.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Even better.
You've got room for that extra thing up there. And that's something that's why one of the things we had to do to pull off our rooftop deck, because we had a hard maximum height. And besides, if you have an interior staircase or elevator that goes up to it, not only do the stairs goes up, but it has to have an enclosed landing, which has to be a full height thing. And if we would have built it that way, we would have been over the height. So to get around that, we had to build an exterior staircase from it that came from the second floor that had a landing. Then it went out to an outdoor staircase that went up to the roof. So we didn't have to have the landing then. So that brought it in underneath the height limit that we had to work with.
That's great. For those new to the term, what exactly is gentle density? And why is it so important in today's housing policy conversation?
Yeah, and this is because there, of course, are plenty of people out there that don't want anything built next to their house. And I get that. And they have an acronym for that. They're NIMBYs. And this is funny. I'm going to explain that a little bit further. Even those people, generally speaking, understand that we have a housing shortage, and the only cure for that is to build more housing. So pretty much everybody agrees on that. The thing with the NIMBYs is that, yes, we should build more housing, just not wherever I am. Which obviously, if everybody thinks that way, then there's nowhere to build. So the NIMBY stands for not in my backyard. So go ahead and build, just not anywhere around me. And I get that, but that's where this gentle density comes in because, and I'll use that project that I talked about. We had a 1-story house in front that we beautifully remodeled. And then in the back, we built a 2-story with rooftop deck ADU. Well, you would think that with an arrangement like that, that from the front, this would be a monstrosity potentially from depending on the eyes you're looking at it through. The reality is, even with that height differential from the street, you basically can't even see it. It's virtually invisible, even with that height difference. So your typical ADU, a smaller one in back, nobody would even know it's there. So, in terms of how it affects the look of a neighborhood, if you're walking or driving down the street, completely unchanged. And that's what they were trying to do, is that if we're going to have to put more housing in, we want to do it in a way that it doesn't change the physical makeup of the neighborhood. And that was their solution to that, was to only allow them to be built in back of existing structures. You could also build to the side, but that never happens because there's no room.
Yeah.
So they all have to have it in the back. So they can actually add a lot more housing, and yet physically the characteristics of that neighborhood from the outside will be relatively unchanged. And one thing that people lose track of is that when older cities were being developed, it was different. Even the zoning was different. There maybe was already zoned, but it was more pliable zoning. So in Los Angeles, for instance, I've got a perfect example. There's some neighborhoods over by the Hollywood area that it's lined with houses that were built in the early 1900s as tracks. As even here, there was track builders. A builder came in and built. They had a few different models, but so it's regular. It's basically pretty homogeneous, pretty similar. Many of those houses have been expanded since, but still, you drive down a street, it's a kind of a uniform look. But even back then, on every block or every other block, one or two of the properties on that block had a duplex to fourplex, maybe a garden bungalow thing in it. And that was normal. And they made a whole TV series called Melrose Place. That's what they were living in. That neighborhood, that's a real neighborhood in Los Angeles. And that neighborhood didn't go to hell because there was a few small rental units that were on the street. One way you can look at it is that more eyes on the street make the street safer. So that's what it does. And it's not about structures, it's about people. And most people are good. So having more good neighbors makes your neighborhood better, not worse. So that's my personal opinion, my take on it. There's basically some historical precedents to affirm that that is true. So I think that this development and all of this extra housing can be added in under this gentle density concepts that will actually improve neighborhoods, not destroy them.
Yeah. So if I'm a Florida homeowner, how would I know if my property is ADU ready? Where can I check? Where can I look? What's the measurements I should take of my backyard? Where to find this information?
Yeah, you can just start with a Google search as ADU regulations in, plug in the name of your
Your
community,
address?
and there should immediately be results. The good thing about going into ADU now is now it's become much more widespread and way more common. So you're not going to have nearly as many challenges getting that information now. Plus, there's going to be plenty of developers that are in any of your areas where they already allow ADUs that are already specializing or saying they're specializing in that business. That's another discussion about the contractors. But there's plenty of resources out there, and there's plenty of ways to find out exactly what your property can be. There's a lot of online companies now that are just doing that. You just plug your address in, and it will pull up a plot map. It'll show you stuff about regulations that might affect that or not. So there's plenty of ways to get that information now.
Awesome. What are the top three pitfalls investors make when starting an ADU project?
As all things construction, whatever you are told it's going to cost and the timeline it's going to take, it's going to be more money and it's going to take longer. that's just a that's just a given. And I've been in the development world for many years, and I that part just always drove me crazy, which is probably why I don't do nearly as much development anymore, because it happens every single time without fail. Never had a project come in under, never had a project come in faster ever in my life. But just be cognizant of having a real budget and having a real timeline. Really important, because when you go and start interviewing contractors, just by and large, they're trained, as salespeople are in general, to tell you what you want to hear. And the better they are at that, the more work they get, the more successful they are, maybe. But just be aware of that, is that get real numbers. And then when you get actually picking people out, get real commitments in writing with all of those what ifs built into it as much as possible. I always recommend, if you can get them to do it, which usually you can, is build in a stick and carrot thing. So if you get it done faster, I'm going to give you a bonus. If you don't get it done on time, there's going to be a penalty every week until it's done. That at least gives you some leverage to work with. And they can still find ways to mess with that, of course, but at least that's just a general rule of thumb that I recommend.
But you can't change the weather.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
always say,
exactly.
like, I know that everybody wants it done in a certain amount of time. I always say, look, we live in Florida. There's a storm every night or every evening or every afternoon. If
Yep.
we're trying to pour concrete in the rain, that's not going to be good concrete, obviously, because it will
No.
dilute our concrete. You got to stop.
Yep.
If we're going to do roofing, you don't want to do it in the rain. If you want to do except certain things you can't do in the rain. And then you need for it to dry up before you can start working on it. So
that's right.
Things that you can't control, but it's not costing you more per se, because those days the crews are not working. Obviously, I might have to pay them something for sitting around, but it's not the same price as if they would be on the site. So let's say on a good day when the crew's out there and pumping cement and doing the work, they're getting paid $25 an hour, but when they're sitting at home, they're getting paid $12.50 an hour for sitting at home waiting for the rain to stop. But it's a cost, yes, that occurs, but it should be, if you're a good contractor, you could do calculations based on previous experience and say, look, we're probably going to have 10 days that we're not going to be able to work. And you calculate it into your proposal and give them, here's the proposal, and it's like this. And I always try to be honest. And I always tell them, you want me to be honest or you want me to get the job?
See, you're unique in that way, unfortunately, but that's the way it should be. 100%.
Exactly. And you get all the jobs that way too, by the way. I don't get
no's.
You don't get no's because you're like, okay, at least this guy's honest. He's telling me that it's going to take them possibly this long if there's no weather interruptions or a hurricane or an earthquake or whatever, one of the subs call out, et cetera. That happens a lot. This is the realistic timeline for a perfect job scenario, but actually it's going to take this long because we're going to have rain and we're going to have people call out and sick and all that stuff. So we're probably going to be this long. But I
wish they all did, but that's not been my experience in life. So kudos to you for taking the high road. And it will, in my opinion, it should pay off, because you get a reputation then of delivering. And that's really the number one thing that people are looking for in a contractor. They're going to assume how to swing hammers and to supervise people swinging hammers. But what they really want to know is that you're going to be honest with them about the pricing and the timeline. When you deliver on that, they really appreciate that. And that goodwill in the end should be golden for you. So
thank you.
Applaud you for that. And I hope you can find a way to stick with that as you go along.
We're going to work on it as much. Look, I have a motto in my real estate business: service with excellence. So I'm trying to keep my whole team portfolio under the same thing. All my businesses, I'm an MLO, I'm a contractor now, and I'm also a real estate agent, broker. So service with excellence is what we're going to thrive for in every aspect of every business. And that means we don't want to cut corners and we want to do it the right way and be honest to our clients and owe that to them as almost like a fiduciary in real estate, fiduciary as a contractor too.
Yes,
You get what I'm
yes, I
saying? Like
agree.
I am working
Oh
for
yeah.
you, with you, hand in
Yep.
hand to get this project done. That's what
And it's so simple. The fiduciary thing is just, there's one rule to it that just explains the whole thing. The client's financial interests come before yours.
mine. Yeah.
As long as you can stay true to that, everything should be perfect. As soon as you put your financial interest ahead of your clients, that's when the trouble starts.
I've read a lot of Tony Robbins and I've done a lot of educational self-building courses and everything like that. If you create value for someone, the monetary follows it. And
Yes.
that's what you're trying to do, achieve in every aspect of your business. We're creating value for our clients no matter what, and then they'll reward us for it. And that's probably monetary reward. More than likely monetary reward. Sometimes because I do charity work as well. Sometimes it's just the heartwarming part, you know?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you got to have goodness in you as well. So I want to just take a quick side turn and just talk about a specific opportunity that, as far as I know, is unique to California, and even more, the highest level of this new opportunity to the city of Los Angeles, which, because it's only one city, it sounds small, but considering it's the second biggest city in the country, it's still actually a huge opportunity. I finally got my head wrapped around that, because when I started going to this, I'd be getting calls from people all over the state and all the different places, and I want to help them all. But then I just started to go, wait a second. Now, my knowledge is going to be helpful, but physically, people have to be there to actually make this stuff happen. And that's just not going to work for me. So I'm just going to have to limit my actual construction development stuff to the area where I am. And that, like I said, it's Los Angeles. So that wasn't too much of a sacrifice by any means. But this opportunity, under the newest state laws that just went into effect literally last month in California, now are taking it to a whole nother level. On a single family lot, you can now build up to 10 units. And on a multifamily zone lot, you can build 10 units, but each unit can have a duplex. And under both scenarios, those 10 lots are going to be subdivided and will be their own separate lot with its own accessory parcel number that can be sold separately. So we've designed this new product to take advantage of this, which is a vertical duplex. So it's a townhouse style. So you enter on the bottom level, and it's got a foyer and entry with a staircase that goes up to the main unit, which is the 2 floors above it. Then on that bottom level, besides the entry, you have the ADU, which could be used by the main unit as a rec room or exercise room or whatever they wanted, but it's a legal ADU. And it can be sold separately as a duplex.
Wow.
So this is where we're going back to part of our discussion earlier. This is huge because one of the most well-known original house hacks was for people that were trying to get into the market. Instead of buying a single family home, buy a duplex, live in one of the units, and then have a tenant in the other unit helping pay for your property. This is brilliant.
Yeah.
But that, just depending, is maybe not going to work for a lot of people. This is a new opportunity now. And one of the things that's driving me to promote this product is that, because I am still a realtor, is the median price of a home in Los Angeles now is over $1 million.
Wow.
And if you look at, even in this city with the higher incomes, the percentage of young people that can afford to get into the market is getting so tiny that this is a potentially very dangerous situation. Because if you look at it in this kind of twisted way that I look at this problem, the real estate market is got a lot in common with a giant Ponzi scheme. Without new money coming in on that bottom level, nobody gets to move up the pyramid. And if first time buyers can't get into the market, that can't be good for the market, period. It probably would be devastating. So we have to find a way to help young people get into the market. So this product is perfect for them, because now that we've built this vertical duplex, the buyer of that property can come in, and the standardized federal lenders out there, Fannie, Freddie, already recognize this, which is why it was a House Act before. If they buy this duplex to live in, that's the one requirement, they have to live in it, then the lender is going to look at the future value of the rent the ADU could bring in and apply that income towards their qualifying to purchase that duplex, which in effect dramatically increases their buying power and will allow them to be able to buy this thing. Now, this is the ultimate win, because the developer of that property, they could just develop it as 10 duplexes. So they got 20 rentable units now. And they could build it and sell it basically as a 20-unit apartment building. And they would make good money on that, because they got all this out of that one piece of low-cost land under the principle we talked about. So that's good. But this is a universal rule of real estate. If you've got a 10 duplex building, and so it's 20 units total, you sell it as a 20-unit building, you take that exact same construction and sell those 10 duplexes separately, the exact same construction, sell them separately, your net profit out of that will be 15 to 20% higher statistically on average. For the exact same work, you get way more money than selling it as a whole. And at the same time, you're going to be helping young buyers get into this impossible market to get into. So this is the first time that I've run across something that, and I'm really good at poking holes and stuff. Where there's got to be downside in here. And I can't, on this one, I can't find it. This one just seems like this is just an amazing opportunity for everybody involved. It'll be great for real estate agents, because now there's going to be 10 transactions that need to be done on the back end of it. That's going to help a lot of real estate agents out too. And I'm still got my head in that game. So I'm really loving this idea. And for investors and anybody that might be interested in doing something like that in Los Angeles, there's a great opportunity for that one right now.
How big of a lot do you need for something like this?
That's the most important part. And for the duplex,
and you still have a single family. You still have a single family in front, or you just buy the parcel, knock down the house, and then do the 10 duplexes on it?
This is where it gets more complicated. So this is where the two different versions of the multifamily or the single family. Now, when I'm saying multifamily, the most efficient way to do this is to buy a single family home on a multifamily zone lot, an older fixer home, because then you're just demoing that home and then you're just filling that lot with the most appropriate size units that you can. And under the multifamily new law, you only need 600 square feet of land per unit. So conceivably, you could fit this, including the setback requirements, you could potentially fit those 10 units on a 7,000 square foot lot.
Oh, you're kidding me.
I know. That
is amazing. I don't even know how that would look. But so 600.
It's just all building.
There's no
and
garage.
It's townhouses.
Though. There's no garage.
You don't have to build parking. Now, if you want to build parking into it too, which depending on the location, I would recommend at least trying to have as much. Then once again, you're just going to need a little bit more land to work with to be able to accommodate that. But it's an optional thing. And that's a whole nother discussion. But the world is changing much faster than most people realize. And I'll give you a perfect example of this. When I grew up, a rite of passage universally was the day you turned 16 to 18, whatever the rules were for getting a driver's license in your state. Where were you? You were at DMV getting your driver's license on your birthday. This was a life-changing event that you had been dreaming of for years because that equated to freedom. And that is just not true anymore. The moms are driving them around in the soccer vans, for one thing, wherever they want to go. There's so many cars. But more importantly, now, when somebody wants to go somewhere, all they need is a phone and push a button and a car just magically appears. And where I am right now in Marina Del Rey, which is part of Los Angeles, if I push that button, a car is going to pull up and there's nobody driving it. Wow. It's already Waymo and it's a computer driving it. And so the young people now just don't see that same need for actually owning a car anymore, which is true. And people get confused about this. This isn't going to change traffic. People still have to go same places they got to go to. The difference is that you don't have to own your own car to do that. You can use somebody else's car to do that. So there'll be the same number of cars on the roads. What's going to change is that there won't have to be nearly as much space to park cars that aren't on the road. And that's going to really just change the real estate game because there's a ridiculous amount of land that's been already set aside for parking. And in the past, that was a necessity. It's just not anymore. So that whole parking thing is changing really fast now. And some of it I like, some of it is a little weird to me. I still haven't gotten in one of those cars with nobody driving it, but I'm gonna, it's very soon. I'm actually looking forward to it. That's the new world, my friend. We're in it.
You're telling me I got the new Chevy Traverse with the, I think it's called an auto drive or whatever. I press the button, take my hands off the wheel on the highway, and it passes cars and it does its thing all the way. And we went to Virginia and back, and I'm telling you, maybe I drove the car myself for about an hour from the 10-hour drive, and 9 hours it was itself driving itself. So I'm like,
and it did a great job.
It's like it looks much safer than you driving up to someone and boom, out back. It does it smoothly with enough distance everywhere. I'm like, okay, this feels like I would have an actual driver driving me around. It's getting better.
I know the Waymo here because that's the way they set them. The only complaint I hear about it is that they're much slower because they're more careful.
They don't drive the speed. Maybe they drive the speed limit. Maybe,
and they yield to everything and anybody.
Oh, there's a dog on the side of the road. Oh, let's stop. Make sure.
Yeah, exactly. Let's just be careful.
Can you share a success story from California that could be replicated here in Florida?
Yeah, I think our origin story is so critical in this. And I'll add a little bit more to that to help people be able to visually figure this out and give them some tools to work with. Anytime you're building housing, it's a relatively simple formula that goes into it. The cost of the land and the cost of construction, and then the value that it creates when you do those things. One of the immediate pluses that you get under the ADU thing is that those things are still in play, except for one, the land. You already have the land. So there's de facto no land cost. So when you're computing what your ROI, your return on investment, is going to be on this new project, the only thing you have to take into consideration is the cost of the construction versus the value it'll create. And the value could be computed either from a sales perspective of selling it or renting it. Both of those are static market numbers, which are readily available. You're a realtor, that you got that stuff totally dialed in exactly. And this is really the magic and one of the first lessons that I learned by building that first ADU. Because the question is, how much value will an ADU add? In the end, I think there's one simplest of all formulas to go by. Whatever your home is worth per square foot in that location, that's the value added on this ADU per square foot in that same location. That's just logical. And there's some ways you can test that theory a little bit, because if you've got a neighborhood that has 2 and 3 bedroom homes, you could look and see what's the price per square foot on the 2 bedrooms, what's the price per square foot on the 3 bedrooms. There'll be a little bit of a difference, but typically not very much. Just the same thing as if an owner was planning that has that 2-bedroom home, his family's grown. So instead of selling and buying a 3-bedroom home, we love our neighborhood. We'd like to stay here. So let's just add another bedroom and bath to our home, a master. So we've got our bigger home. Same thing. That will increase the value of that property because now it's a bigger property. And the easiest metric to use on that is that price per square foot. So I don't know the numbers in the areas you're at, but let's just say that it's an average of $400 a square foot. Now, all you need to fill in on this is that how much does it cost you to build your ADU? Now, that's going to vary some from location to location, but not that much really in the end.
I think it's around 200, 210 a foot here to build.
And that's pretty similar to what it is here. And then you're going to have a contractor markup in there. So let's just say $250 a square foot.
Yeah.
But it's going to create you a value of $400 a square foot, depending on your neighborhood. Nothing wrong with that investment.
No, there's nothing wrong with that.
You're almost doubling your money on your investment. And the rent numbers always follow whatever the sale numbers are. And there's always a relationship very similar between the two, because you get to build on free land. And this is something the government did. They did something good. Every once in a while they do. With the stroke of a pen, they gave you an opportunity to build an income producing asset on free land. Literally, there's no cost in it. You already own it. So all you've got to do is figure out how much it's cost you to build it, and then the value that it's going to create. And under that formula, this is always going to be a home run. Just you can't miss.
Great info on that one. What zoning and permitting trends should real estate professionals be watching for in the next 2 to 5 years?
Yeah, I would just be always keeping your eye on, what is the attitude towards ADU growth? It became a popular term that kind of represents this gentle density concept. They figured out that they could go out and change zoning, but that's a way more political and complicated process. They didn't change any zoning in California. They just changed the use of the zoning that already exists on a case by case. And they started with the single family, they ended the multifamily in now. So it's still, the zoning never changed, but it is a change in the zoning. It's just a little smoke and mirrors, but it doesn't matter. But it's always going to be in the news. Anytime there's proposed new density coming in, there's always going to be a political discussion about that. So it's not hard to find the information about that. But the problem has gotten severe enough for long enough that they realize, the governments I'm speaking of, that they're just going to have to stomach it, and they're going to have to bite the bullet, and they're just going to know that there's going to be some blowback from people on it. But that's what governments are supposed to do. They're supposed to lead and help the greater society that they're the part of the governance of. And this is responsible stuff they're doing. Not everybody's going to be happy with it. It's just not the way it works, no matter what. But in the end, this is going to happen, and it's happening more and more, including in Florida. And Florida has been, much to my delight, actually been pretty pro ADU from pretty early on into the process too. But there's plenty of pockets around you, and even within Florida, it's probably never going to be really very viable. But plenty more that will than won't. So I'm very hopeful that you're going to have personally an opportunity to be involved in more of it yourself, and hopefully many of your listeners will as well.
I see this really becoming a solution for more of our metro areas like Miami, where the per square foot price is getting unrealistic, like in LA, like $1 million for a starter home.
Yeah,
Come on. We're
yeah,
getting that.
yeah,
We're getting close to that in Miami.
yeah,
Orlando's not there yet, but it's getting there as well. And
yeah.
those are two major cities that or Tampa as well, one of the hot spots in the country, are getting up there. Tampa's not there yet either, but Miami is definitely getting up to
Oh yeah,
one
yeah.
bedroom condo for a
They
million
got the
bucks.
yeah.
Getting up there. So if you want like somewhat of a single family living, no, it's not single family because a townhouse is not really single family, but it's close enough that you're not
Yeah,
in between four walls in a condo. This is a good solution for that. And you could still have a dog and walk the dog out on the street properly instead of having them locked up in a condo.
yes,
So there are really good benefits to this. And as you said, developers can make money. It's good for the entry level people, and it's good all in all, basically. Yes, traffic will get a little bit more stringent as we adapt to this new kind of system with the automatic drivers, et cetera, et cetera.
yep.
We still don't have that over here, man. Just so you know, like,
Yeah, no,
we're
it's
having the
coming.
same thing yet in Florida.
It's a coming. There's no doubt. This train has left the station literally, and this is happening, and it's going to spread fast.
We still have
It
rentals require, I think, a two-car parking space for per rental unit, even for a one bedroom in our area. So that's going to be the hey buddy, my son's checking on me. But that's going to be one of the things. Let's go to the next
yep.
question. How can small scale developers like myself, I'm just starting in my contracting world, scale up without getting buried in red tape?
Unfortunately, there's no way to avoid the red tape. But one of the things that the government has been doing more and more, besides the fact that they've been adding this density thing, and I'll go back to California again. One of the things from the very original ADU law built in, two things. It's a ministerial process, which means it's a by right process. There's no public forums, no hearings, anything like that. You walk in with a set of plans that complies with their regulations. They have to give you the permit. They also put in a time frame that they have to approve them in 60 days, which for here, that was like earth shattering, because to get your typical permit, just to get the permit, was more typically in the 6 to 9 month range. So they really put the screws down on the building and safety and planning departments to move fast to get these things done, because they recognized that was an issue that has been part of the reason why we've got into this mess, is that they made it so much more difficult to build and timely to build. And so the government's got just some levers they can pull, and they knew which ones they were, and they're pulling them. So hopefully that'll be as true in Florida as it is in other places. So the template's already been put out there. So it's a lot easier for governments to follow now. They don't have to make up any of this stuff. There's plenty of different places out there that have whichever version of the laws they want in place already. And just as a little side note on this, the first place I heard about in the US that did the ADU thing was Portland, Oregon, which has always been pretty progressive in these kind of things. But actually, historically, I dug a little deeper, and the first place I found it was in Vancouver, Canada, where they're called laneway houses because alleys there are called laneways instead of alleys. And oh, by the way, this is just another little tip. Best place to do these kind of projects is on corners or alleys, or the trifecta, a corner and an alley, because more access points means you can create more privacy between units. The more privacy you can create between units, the more value they bring for renters in particular.
Yeah. That's awesome. Vancouver, I could see that happening up there. We've been up there with my wife a couple years ago, and the prices are insane in Vancouver. I was like,
Oh yeah, same
gorgeous
thing.
place.
Money is the great driver of innovation for sure.
Holy cow up there. $1 million,
Yeah,
I don't think you could get anything for $1 million up there, in
no, it's
my
it's
opinion.
that thing.
You think
Yeah,
LA is expensive? Go to Vancouver.
yeah, exactly,
It's
exactly.
gorgeous.
No,
Like
I
I
know.
loved every bit of it. It was amazing. The scenery, the mountains right next to the big city. You go literally 10 minutes out of town and you're on top of a mountain that looking down at the major metro city. It is just gorgeous. And I can see how people want to live there. And that's why the density comes the way it is as well. Plus, I think it's one of Canada's biggest ports too, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and a very international city as
Yeah.
well, particularly from the Orient areas. But just as a simple rule of thumb, as we discussed, the cost of construction is basically a fixed number.
Yeah.
So the very simple math is build it in the most expensive place you can,
Yeah.
because
Because
that spread just gets bigger and bigger the more expensive the area is, because your cost is going to be the same. Now, when you get into obviously more luxury markets, then you are going to spend more on the construction, because the amenities and the finishes and stuff are they're expected to be at a higher level. But still, the formula, it just works better and better as the areas get more and more affluent
a
to
lot of
live.
our houses, even here in Daytona, that are on the beach, on the ocean, or on the river, have ADUs already because
Yeah,
they've realized
exactly.
at an early stage, so let's build a house and give it an in-law suite or
Yep.
a pool house with a kitchen and
Yep.
bedroom, living room area. But it's a pool house to the pool. It's actually a living, a full-on living house. You could live in it if you wanted to. So the wealthy recognized this early on, and they added them
Yes.
automatically into their constructions of their houses. I see that easily. Or it could have been the maid quarters or whatever. For if you're talking about 100-year-old house or more, or
Yep.
between there, that okay, that's where the housekeeper and the butler lives, and they come and they take care of the house from there. Now it's becoming more families living on property. I have one more question for you, and then I'm going to close
Okay.
out. If you could give one
Great.
piece of advice to a Florida investor thinking about ADUs today, what would it be?
Do it now. Get it while the getting's good, because there's one thing we know about government: what the government giveth, the government can taketh away. So they're not, this isn't like necessarily the plan forever. This is the response to a specific challenge out there right now. There's a housing shortage. Once the market is gets a little bit better equilibrium, I would certainly not be surprised if they start to undo this stuff. Everything that was already there will totally be able to stay, no problem. But there's just always that incentive to go the other way. There's a lot of extra incentive for them to push this through, because it's not popular with everybody, as nothing is, but that would be the one thing. This is a great opportunity right now, but it might not necessarily be that same opportunity 10 years from now. So you never know. Who can tell?
Seth, you've given us a masterclass on how small scale
Yeah,
housing
yeah.
solutions can lead to big returns, both for investors and communities. If you're listening right now and you're ready to unlock hidden value in your property, start looking at your backyard differently. The future of Florida real estate isn't just in high rises, it's in small, flexible spaces like ADUs. You can learn more about Seth and his work at adugold.com. This is the Real Estate Roundtable. I'm your host, Lancelot Lenard. Don't forget to subscribe, share this episode with someone thinking about investing, and join us next time as we bring you more strategies to thrive in today's real estate market. Until then, keep building, keep investing, and keep turning visions into value. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Sir Lancelot's Real Estate Roundtable, where we've unveiled the mysteries of real estate together. Remember, in this kingdom of possibilities, every dream home is just a discussion away. I can help your real estate dreams come true. Just call me at 786-449-7518. Until our next roundtable, may your ventures be prosperous and your homes be filled with love and joy. Farewell, fellow knights of real estate.